If you would like to have full support from a programming expert via Telegram group and group coaching, check the description below. Hi everyone, my name is Giovanna Proença, and today we're going to talk about the only exercises you need to do the problem set 1. And here's the part 2, okay? Because the part 1 is about variables, and this problem we're going to talk about functions. So if you would like to have full support from a programming expert, check the description below, alright? And let's start now the exercises. So before we start, let's see this animation explain a little bit about functions, return, and those things, okay? In some Python scripts, you may see a function definition and a conditional statement that looks like the example below. In this code, there is a function called main that prints the phrase hello world when the Python interpreter executes it. There is also a conditional or if statement that checks the value of name and compares it to the string main. When the if statement evaluates to true, the Python interpreter executes main. The return keyword in Python exists in a function and tells Python to run the rest of the main program. A return keyword can send a value back to the main program. While values may have been defined in a function, you can send them back to your main program and read them throughout your code. Let's use one example of the return statement to illustrate how it works. Say that we are creating a program that calculates the double of a number. We could accomplish this task using the following code. We declare a function called double num that multiplies the received number by 2. In this case, the received number is 5, so our program returns 10. Then the variable x will hold the value 10 since the function double num 5 returned this value. So now let's try to do this. Try not, we're going to do this, okay? So create a function that prints hello and call this function from main. So first we're going to create a function. So when we create functions, we have to use the def of definition, and I'm going to call our function as hello, okay? So this is, so you see here that it also changes the color because def is a name from Python, okay? It's definition is a word that Python understands, and hello, it's the name of the function that we are creating, okay? So this is for us. We can change this for, I don't know, hi, David, I don't know, we can change for any name. It's up to you to decide. And inside the parentheses, we're going to put an input for this function or not. If we want to have an input, we put here inside. If we don't have any input, we're not going to put anything inside the parentheses. So let's check. Create a function that prints hello. Since this is a function that just wants to print hello, we don't need any inputs inside, okay? So we're inside of the function, we're just going to print hello. And now we're going to call this function from main. So how are we going to do this? First, we have to define the function, okay? So we can see here that everything that is inside this function has this indentation here, okay? And when we come back and when we don't have the indentation anymore, it's because we are out of this function. So out of this function, I'm going to call this function to work. So I'm just going to say hello. And when I say just hello, what the compiler will understand that I am calling this definition of hello, and it's going to happen something that is inside this function, okay? I know it sounds a little bit abstract, but you're going to see that it's a very helpful tool for everything you're going to do in programming. So let's check. When we call the function, we're going to print hello. Why? This thing here, it's going to call the function that it was defined here, and when we call the function, it's going to happen everything that is inside the function. Since inside the function there is only the print hello, we're just going to print hello in here. This thing here is the same as if we just do this, okay? So it's the same thing. The only difference is that in this case we are doing in a more sophisticated way, creating a function, okay? So always remember to create functions. So now let's go to the next problem. Create a function that returns the double of a number, call the function multiple times and print the result. So now we're going to create a different function. So I'm going to call def, that is definition, and I'm going to call my function as double, okay? So here we have to put, we need an input in this problem. So create a function that returns the double of a number. So yes, because we need to know which number the user wants to to have the double of this number. So here we have to pass as input the number n, so we put here n. And what are we going to do? We're going to return n multiplied by 2, okay, because we want the double. If we do this in here, so if we just do Python problems.py, nothing's going to happen. Why? Because we're not calling this function anywhere. So we have to call this function. Let's call the function in the main. So here we have to do double. Let's check what happens if we do double 2. So let's print here. Nothing happens. Why? Because the function has a return. It's using return here. The return, it's different from print. Return is going to give us a number, so the number n multiplied by 2 will be stored in this double 2 here, this thing here. So if we want to print, we have to call print, and we have to print inside. We're going to see this using the debugger. So debug 50 problems.py. I put a breakpoint on line 4, so let's check what happens. So here I'm calling the function double, okay, and we're going to double. So what double is going to do? We're passing n equals to 2, the value of 2 here, and we're going to return n multiplied by 2. So when we see here, we're going to say 4, okay, because this double, I'm going to put here another thing. So value, so result is equals to double 2, just for you to see this inside. So let's do the debugger again. I want you to understand what's happening in this function. Sorry, let's put a breakpoint in here. So debug 50 problems, so now it's running. What do we have? So here we're going to call the function double. And you see here we're passing n equals to 2, so this double function is going to return 2 multiplied by 2, that is 4. So if you check here, our result has value 4, and we're going to print the number of result, that is 4, okay? So now let's do problem 2. So like we saw before, we can create functions, alright? We can define a function, and in this function we can call it in our main function, alright? So basically, what is the idea of functions? We're gonna write separate functions, auxiliary functions, to do some things for us instead of us repeating every time what we're doing. So the main idea of creating function is avoiding repeat ourselves, alright, when we are working with coding in here. So let's say this problem. Write a program to create a function that takes 2 arguments, name and age, and print their value. So in this case, we're gonna create a function that it's gonna receive 2 parameters, alright, 2 variables. And with these 2 variables, one will be the name and the other one the age. And then we're gonna print this, okay? So it will be pretty similar to the previous problem. So in this case, I'm gonna define, so we need to define a function, and I'm gonna create a function called func, okay? And let's do the following. Every time we're creating a function, we need to use colon, okay? And do you see the indentation in here? This indentation means that we are inside the function. If we go back, this indentation, this means that we are outside the function, okay? Only if we are inside. So in here, so far, I wanna print hello again, where we stopped the last time. And in here, I'm gonna call the function func, okay? But I wanna show you how it works, basically. So before calling the function func, I'm gonna print something like starting, okay? And I'm gonna print after calling the function func, I'm gonna print finish, okay? And let's see what happens in here. So I'm gonna put the breakpoint on line 4. Let's use the debugger and let's run in here. And let's understand what's going on. So Python file, blah, blah, blah. And let's see. So basically we start on line 4, all right? In our code, we're starting on line 4, and we normally read things from top to bottom, okay? So the first line we're gonna read, that our computer will read, is the line 4. So what is gonna happen on line 4? We're gonna print starting, okay? And when we run in here, in the terminal, we can see starting, all right? And then we're gonna call the function func. So what's gonna happen? Instead of going after the line 5, instead of going to line 6, we're going to line 1. Okay, so if we go step into, we're going to line 1, and then we're going to enter inside the function func. Okay, and inside this function we're gonna print hello. So when we run in here, we're gonna see right now in our terminal hello. So we have first starting, then hello, and once we print the word hello, once we finish the function func, we get out of this function and we go back where we stop. So we were at line 5, we enter in line 2, and now we go back to line 6, all right, because we're done with line 5 with calling the function, and now we're gonna print finish. Okay, so it's important to check this exercise because we can see all the steps that is going on. So I'm gonna run again. Let me enter in the terminal and I'm gonna run Python problems.py. And once I run in here, it's important to see what is the order that our computer is running. So we have here line 4, we first print line 4, then we call the function and we print hello, and then we go to line 6. Okay, so this is the order. We always read from top to bottom, but when we call the function, we enter in the function, do everything that is inside of there, and then we go back to where we stopped. Okay, so now let's do the problem 2 for real. So write a program to create a function that takes 2 arguments, name and age, and print their value. So in here, we want to pass 2 parameters. So far, we weren't passing anything, but right now, I want to receive name and age. And when we work with these arguments, means that we're going to receive some values. In this case, we're going to receive 2 values, and we're able to manipulate these 2 variables inside of our function. Okay, so let me remove this and let me remove the line 6 as well. Let me put the breakpoint on line 5. And on line 2, we want to print the name and the age. Name and age. Okay, and let's see what happens. So when we call the function, we need to pass the name and the age. So in my case, when we call the function in here, this means that we're gonna do whatever is inside the function. And since the function, the definition of the function needs 2 parameters, we're gonna pass these 2 values for these parameters, okay? So for name, I'm gonna put Giovanna, and we're gonna split with a comma, and this comma means that right now, so Giovanna will be the value for name, and whatever I put in here will be the value of age, and I'm gonna put 23, okay? This is my age. So let's run and see what happens. Okay, so when I run and debug, we're gonna check in here that we're gonna call the function Giovanna. So once we enter in the function, oops, I ran it the wrong way, sorry, let's run again. And I wanna do something extra later so you can start to understand what is going on when we're working with a function, okay? So we're calling the function on line 5, so we're going now to line 1, okay? And in here, do you see locals? So we have the variable. So we have the variable name here that we defined, and the value for the variable name is Giovanna, because this was the first thing we pass inside the parentheses, okay? And we have a variable age, and it stores a number 23. That is exactly what I pass here as a second argument, okay? And in the end, we're gonna print Giovanna and 23, all right? So this is the main idea of the problem. So now let's do again to understand something different. One thing that is important to notice is that every time we're working with functions, the variables, they are local to the function, okay? So the variable name and age only exists inside the function func. If we try to print name and age after the line 6 or before line 5, so if we try to print the value of name and age or use the variable name and age outside the function, these variables do not exist, all right? The computer does not know what this means. So let's try it out. If I try to print here name and I try to print here age, for example, let's see what is the problem here. So we're gonna run and debug, okay? First, let's try to run on line 4. So if I run and debug, let's take a look at the debugger, because the debugger always tells us what are the variables that are available. So take a look in here. Do we have a variable called name somewhere? No, right? We don't have a variable called name. So this name variable does not exist, and we're gonna have an error, okay? This will tell us name error. Name is not defined, so it's telling us that the variable name does not exist. And we're expecting to have this because name is something that exists inside the function func, but not in our main function, okay? And now let's try to print main after calling the function Giovanna. So if I do here print name, okay, and let's see what happens again. And this is really important. If you get this, you're gonna understand functions extremely well, okay? So in here, we're calling the function, right, Giovanna, let's enter. So here inside the func variable, we have the variable age, 23, and name, Giovanna, okay? But I want you to notice that once I click this button, once we go to line 5, we're not gonna have these variables anymore. They won't exist anymore. So let's see, once I click in here, once I click in here, we don't have anymore the variable name or age, right? So these variables do not exist anymore. And this is what we were expecting. So right now, if we try to print name, we're gonna have the same error. Name is not defined, okay? So this is the main idea. Every time we're working with functions, we can receive values and store in variables, okay? Arguments are variables that we can store values. And these variables of the function only exist locally. They do not exist globally. All right, so now let's go to the next problem. So now let's do problem 5. So from now on, the next exercises, a couple of them, will be exactly the same as the first video, all right? The previous video, the only exercises you need for problem set 0. But right now, we're gonna use function to help us to do this, okay? So I highly recommend you to watch that video first and then watch this video. I'm gonna explain again, but I believe that the other video I explained with more details, so please watch that video first, okay? It will be here in the card. So let's start here the problem 4. Ask user for 2 integers in the main function. Create a function that sums them and return the result. Print the result in the main function, okay? So here we have some things to do. We're gonna ask the user for 2 integers, okay? And then we're gonna calculate the sum inside of this function. So let's start creating let's start asking the user for an input. So I'm gonna create a variable a equals to input, okay? And I'm gonna ask for a number. And then I'm gonna create a variable b, and I'm gonna use input, and I'm gonna ask for another number. Okay? And if you don't remember what is input, let's take a look at this animation. Basically, the function input allows us to ask questions to the user, and the answer that the user typed in we can store in a variable. For example, if we want to ask the name of the user, we can do username equals to input, what's your name? And it will be prompt in the terminal. The user can write his name. If the user types in Giovanna, the variable username will store Giovanna. Since the answer is stored in a variable, we can use this answer in our code. So basically, the input function will help us to get the value that the user will type in on the terminal, all right? So let's take a look what happens in here. If I run and debug, okay, we're gonna run the line 1, and whatever I type in here will be the value for the number a. So for example, if I put 4 in here, we're gonna see that the variable a stores the number 4, okay, in a string, and the value b, if I ask again, we're gonna put some other number, and this will be the number for the value b, okay? So basically, the input function, we can store whatever the user type in on the terminal, okay? So far we're getting these 2 numbers, and right now we're gonna call the function, okay? So before I call the function, let's define this function. What's gonna happen? Create a function that sum them and return the result. So we're gonna sum these 2 integers. So I'm gonna create a function, we're use define here, and I'm gonna create a function func again. And I'm expecting to receive 2 numbers, x and y. Okay, you can use a and b, x and y, any name you want. And what we want to do, I'm going to create a variable result, and I want to do I'm going to create a variable sum, and I'm going to do x plus y, okay? So we're doing the sum here, and here they are telling us to return the result. So every time we work with a function, this function can return anything, or we can return a value, all right? So in this case, for example, the idea of this function is to return the sum. We can go back to our main function, giving what is the sum of these two integers, okay? So we use the word return, and I'm gonna return sum. We're gonna see what happens, don't worry. Then we're gonna create a variable called result, and in this variable result, I wanna store whatever the function func returned to us. So I wanna store whatever this function returned, that is the sum. And to do this, we need to call the function. So I'm gonna do func, and I'm gonna pass the variable a and b, okay? Because this is what we wanna send. And in the end, I wanna print result. Let's see every little thing that is going on in here. So I'm gonna run and debug, and let's try it out. So in here, we're gonna ask the user for the value of a, and when we ask here, I'm gonna put the number 4 again, and then variable a is storing the number 4. Now, in the variable b, we're gonna ask again the user, and I'm gonna put here a number, for example, 5, okay? Now, the variable result, we're gonna store whatever the function func return when we pass a and b. So when we click step into, our variable x right now, do you see that we don't have anymore the variable a and b, because a and b is something for the main function, like we saw in problem 2. And right now we have the variable x that stores the value 4, because this is what we pass as the first parameter. So a will be the value of x, and here we have value 4, and y will have the value 5. In line 2, we're gonna sum x plus y, and we're expecting to receive the number 9. But when we take a look in here, our sum is 45, okay? So what is going on? Basically, here, we're not working with numbers for real. We're working with strings. These numbers, they are inside of a string. And we can see this, we can notice this when we take a look at the single quotation mark, okay? So we're gonna fix how to change this, okay? Don't worry. But let's take a look now about the return, okay? So we wanna return the value of sum. Once I click, and we can see here the value of sum is 45. Once I click step into, we go back to our main function, okay? And we see that our variable return, let me go to the next line. Our variable return is 45, okay? So our sum variable was for 45, and we want to return it. So when we go back to our main function, the result right now has value 45. And we can take a look in here, the function func return 45, and we're storing this in our variable result, okay? And in the end, we're gonna print 45. So basically, this return will return a value to our main function, okay? So how can we fix this idea? How can we fix, instead of summing strings, we can sum integers? Well, I explained this better in the previous video, but I will explain again. Like I said, basically, we are working here, the input function will return as a string. So the number 4 and 5, they were strings, not integers. All right, they weren't integers. So we can convert these numbers into integers. And how can we do this? Here we can use the word int, and we're changing this variable x into an integer. And here we're doing int again, and we're changing these variables to an integer, okay? So let's try again and see what happens. So when I run and debug, now the idea is, instead of sum returning us 4 and 45, it's going to return us what we're expecting in math, that it's 9, okay? So again, the variable a, we're gonna ask the user, I'm gonna pass the number 4. And here we're gonna store the number 4 in quotation marks, so this means that it's a string. And now the variable b, we're gonna ask again, and it will return us, I put here the number 5, and now the variable b has the value 5. So again, we're gonna call the function func, and we're passing the number 4 and 5. So thinking about the position, we're passing 4 first, so x will be 4, and we're passing 5 after, and y will be 5. So let's see, when we take a look in here, x is equals to 4 and y is equals to 5. Now we're gonna sum 4 and 5, but remember that in here we're doing int x, so int the string 4, now we're gonna have the integer 4. Then int y, so int the string 5, we're gonna convert 5 into an integer 5, okay? So in the end, this sum will be equals to 9. and now it's equals to 9. Can you see? When it's a string, it is in orange because it's in between of quotation marks, and when it's a number, it's in green because now we're working with actual numbers, okay? So right now we're gonna return the number 9, and when we take a look in here, result will be equals to 9, okay? Because this is what we are returning in the function, and we're gonna print the number 9. Okay, so this is how we're gonna do in this problem. Let's see the next one. So now let's do problem 5. It will be pretty similar to problem 4, but instead of using integer, we're gonna use float. So let's take a look. Ask user for 2 float numbers in the main function. Create a function that sum them and return the result. Print the result in the main. So here it will be exactly the same, but instead of converting here to an integer, we're gonna convert to a float. Okay, so remember, float, integer is a number that has no decimal places, and a float can have decimal places. So for example, 2.5 is a float, not an integer. 2 can be a float and an integer. Okay, so let's start working. In here, this will be our change. Instead of int, we're gonna change here to float. Okay, and let's see what's going on. So if we run and debug, let's wait a second. So if we run any bug here, we're gonna ask for a number, and I'm gonna put here, for example, 2.5, and again in letter B, so at letter A we have 2.5, and in the variable B, I'm gonna store 5.0, 5.1, for example. It can be 5 as well. And now we're gonna call the function, and we're going to line 2. So in here we're going to line 2, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna convert this 2.5 string into a float, so it will become our actual number, and we're gonna sum 2.5 with 5.1. So when we do this sum will be 7.6, and we're gonna return the value of sum to our result. So if we take a look in here, now our result has the value 7.6, whatever we return in here, and we're gonna print 7.6. Okay, now let's go to the next one. Ask the user for 2 integers in the main function, create a function that subtract them and return the result, print the result in the main. So here we're gonna return this into an integer. Okay, we don't wanna work with floats in this case. And the only difference we're gonna do is instead of adding here, we're gonna subtract. So here we're gonna do minus. Okay, and let's run it again. So if I run and debug, let's wait a second. We're gonna ask the user for the variable A, and I'm gonna put here, for example, 4, and then we're gonna ask the user for the variable B, and I'm gonna put here the number 2. Then we're gonna enter in the function func, and in here we're gonna do 4 minus 2, and our sum variable that we should change the name will be equals to 2 because we're doing 4 minus 2. And when we return to the main function, we don't have these variables anymore. We have only A, B, and result. And result now stores a value 2, that is whatever we subtract in the function. Okay, so that's it for this problem. Now let's go to problem 7. Ask the user for 2 integers in the main function. Create a function that multiply them and return the result. Print the result in the main function. So here it will be exactly the same, but instead of subtract, we're gonna multiply. So in here, to change, we're gonna use the star, okay, because this represents the multiplication. And let's run and debug again. So let's see. We're gonna ask the user for the variable A. I'm gonna put here, for example, 3, and then we're gonna ask the user for the variable B. So here A is equals to 3, and now B will be equals to 10, for example. So we have here A equals to 3, B equals to 10. We're gonna call the function func, and we're gonna pass the number 3 to be our x and the number 10 to be our y. And when we take a look in here, we have exactly this, x equals to 3, y equals to 10. And here we're gonna multiply them, so we're gonna do x times y, so 3 times 10, and remember that they are integers, so our sum variable will be equals to 30, okay, 30 here. And when we go back to the main function, the result will be equals to 30, because this is whatever the function returned to us, okay, and that's it. Now, let's go to the next one. ask the user for two integers in the main function that Create a function that divides the two integers and return the result. Print the result in the main function. So in the previous problem, in the previous video, I explained how can we divide using one slash or two slashes, the big difference, okay? In this case, we're gonna use only one, and then we can see the second one, okay? So it will be exactly the same. We're gonna ask the user for two integers, and we wanna divide them. So to divide, let's start dividing with one slash and see what happens, okay? So when we run and debug here, we're gonna ask the user for the variable a, and I'm gonna put here, for example, 10, and then I'm gonna ask the user for the variable b, and I'm gonna put the number 2. So in here we have a equals to 10 and b equals to 2. Now we're gonna pass the number 10 and 2 to our function, okay? So now x is equals to 10 and y is equals to 2. We don't have a and b anymore. Now we're gonna divide 10 by 2. When we use only one slash, we're gonna see that the sum variable will be a float, okay? Because when we use only one slash, the result will be a float. So in here we have 5.0, okay? And when we go back to the main function, result is equals to 5.0. But we can divide in a different way. Here we're using one slash, but we can use two slashes. So for example, if I put here a slash again, let me remove this. If I put here two slashes, let's see what happens. So if it's only one slash, it will be 5.0. And now I'm gonna pass the same parameter. So 10 divided by 2. So we're passing the number 10 and 2 to our func. So 10 divided by 2 with two slashes, we're gonna return an integer as a result. With one slash, it's a float, but with two slashes, we're gonna see here, it's an integer. We have no decimal places, okay? And when we go back to the main function, our result will be equals to 5, the number 5, okay? And that's it so far. Well done. So now let's go to problem 9, and we're gonna ask the user for two integers, ask the user for two numbers in the main function, create a function that divides them and return the result. Print the result with no decimal places in the main function. So this exercise, we kind of saw exactly the same in the previous video, but right now we're gonna do the same thing here, okay? So we're gonna go back using one slash, and we wanna use the round function. So this problem 9, we can solve two ways. The way that we had before, using two slashes, okay? Or we can use the round function. So let's take a look how the round function works. The round function returns a floating point number that is a rounded version of the specified number with the specified number of decimals. So let's see this example. If I put this in here, I want to round this number 5.76543, and I want to use only two decimal places. Here in the result we only have 5.77. But if I remove this number 2 and I run it again, it will give us only the number 5 because the number 6 because we are rounding. So basically in here when we don't pass the second parameter here, this means that we don't want any decimal places. Okay, so this will be exactly what we're gonna do. Our main change will be using the round in here in the print. So we're gonna round in the print. And why in the print? Because the variable result will be the one that it's gonna store whatever we wanna print. So we wanna print with no decimal places. This is where we're gonna do this. Okay, so let's run again, now using regularly. Let's run with the debugger. Actually, this round we can pass whatever we want. Okay, I'm gonna change. Because I wanna show you how it works. I'm gonna round in here. So I'm gonna do round in here. And our variable result will be already rounded. Okay, so let's run in here. I'm gonna pass the number 10, and I wanna pass the number 3. Okay, so in here we're passing the number 10 for the variable a, and b is equal to 3. When we enter in the func function, we're gonna do 10 divided by 3, and when we take a look, sum is equal to 3.33333, okay? But when we return to our main function, we're gonna see that the result won't be 3.333. It will be only 3, because the round will make this change for us. And like we can see, the result will only be 3 because we are rounding with no decimal places, okay? and when we print, we're gonna print the number 3. All right, now let's see the next one. So ask the user for two numbers in the main function, create a function that divides them. This is wrong in here, okay, but I already changed in the ebook, and return the result. Print the result with only 2 decimal places in the main function. So here we're gonna use the round again, okay, but we're gonna do exactly what we did in here. Right now we wanted 2 decimal places, so if we do comma 2 and we run it again, now we're gonna print 5.77 because the second parameter we're passing here explains how many decimal places we want, okay? So we're gonna do this in here. Since we wanted 2 decimal places, I'm gonna put the number 2 in here. And let's run again. So they're gonna ask us for a number. I'm gonna put the number 10 again and the number 3. And we're gonna divide. So we're passing the number 10 and number 3 for x and y. We're gonna divide 10 by 3 and our sum will be equal to 3.333, infinite 3. Now the round, we're gonna see that instead of the result becoming only the number 3 with the round, it's going to be 3.33 because we set here that we want 2 decimal places. And when we go back, we see that the result is equal to 3.33. Okay, so that's it for this problem. Let's go to the next one. So now on problem 11, we're gonna ask the user for a message, write a function to return the message in uppercase and print it. So let's remove everything we have, okay? And we're gonna ask the user for a message. So I'm gonna create a variable msg and I'm gonna ask the user for a message, okay? Then we're gonna create a function to return the message in uppercase. So in here, we're gonna define a function, okay? And we're gonna receive this message and we're gonna return this message in uppercase. So I'm gonna receive this message and we're gonna return. I'm gonna create a variable txt and we're gonna return this message in uppercase. So how can we do this? We can use one function that has name uppercase in Python. You can search, and we're gonna open up this W3 Schools. Sorry, open up the wrong link. The W3 Schools, there is a really good resource, okay? And what the upper method will do. The upper method returns a string where all characters are in uppercase. Symbols and numbers are ignored. So for example, here the text, the variable txt has this message, hello my friends, with only the capital H. When we create this variable x equals to txt.upper and we print everything, now it's in uppercase. So this will be exactly what we're gonna do, okay? So we're gonna create a variable txt where we're gonna use this message.upper, okay? And we're gonna return txt. So in here, I'm gonna create a variable called result and I'm gonna store whatever the function returned to us. And remember that we have to pass the message that the user typed in, and we're gonna print result, okay? So let's see what happens. If I run and debug, we're going to see the following. Let me close in here. So we're gonna ask the user for a message. We're gonna ask the user for a message. I'm gonna say here, hello there, for example. And when I click enter, we have now the variable message equals to hello there, and we're gonna pass this message to our func variable. So we're calling the function and we're gonna enter. Now we have the variable message that stores the value hello there, and we're gonna use the upper method in this variable. So when we click in this button, the variable txt will be a copy of message but everything in uppercase. So now our variable txt is hello there in all uppercase. And when we return to the main function, result will be hello there in uppercase because this is what we return from our func function. And we're gonna print hello there. Okay, so now let's go to the last problem. In this problem, we will convert the value that the user will give to us from miles to kilometers. Ask the user for a number that represents the miles. Write a function to return the kilometers that this number of miles represent and print the result. So I know this question has more lines than usual, but it will be pretty similar to what we were doing before, okay? And this is already pretty similar to what you're gonna face in the problem set 0 of CS50 Python. So let's try this together. I'm gonna remove everything and we're gonna work with this together. Okay, so in this problem, we will convert the value that the user will give to us from miles to kilometers. So for example, we're going to receive 1 mile and we want to know how many kilometers we have in 1 mile. And we already have here the hint that 1 mile is 1.06934 kilometers. Okay, so we're going to use this to convert. So we want to ask the user for how many miles he want to know. Then we're going to create a function that will make this conversion from miles to kilometers, and in the end we're going to print the kilometers. Okay, so let's ask the user for miles. So I'm going to create a variable miles, and I'm going to ask the user for miles in here, and I'm going to write it down the message miles. Okay, this miles can be a float, so we're going to accept any number here that the user want to type in. Okay, then let's create a function to convert. So I'm going to create a function called convert. Okay, and we're going to receive the miles as an argument. Okay, what we're going to do in this miles function, in this convert function, we're going to create a variable called kilometer, for example, and we're going to make this conversion. So we want to know how many kilometers there is in 1 mile. So we just need to multiply. So in 1 mile we have this many kilometers, so we just need to multiply miles times 1.60 and so on. So we're going to do miles multiplied by 1.6934. Okay, one thing that is important is this miles variable is a string, so we need to convert this into a float. So we do this float in here like we saw before, and to finish our function we need to return our variable kilometers, so return km, and in the end print the result. So we need to store this result, whatever the convert function is returning to us, so we're going to store in this result variable. So I'm going to call the function convert, and I'm going to pass the miles, and in the end we're going to print result. Okay, so let's see step by step in here. Let me run and debug, and then we're done with this problem. Okay, so in here we're going to ask how many miles. I'm going to put, for example, 2.5. Okay, and our miles variable is storing 2.5. Now we're going to call the function convert, and we're passing 2.5 as an argument. So when we enter in the convert function, we go to line 2, and we have miles equals to 2.5. Now we're going to convert miles to a float, so now we can make actually some math in here, and we're going to do 2.5 times 1.60953. Okay, and our km variable will be this multiplication, 4.0 blah blah blah. Okay, and we're going to return this variable km to our result. So when we go back to our main function, we don't have any more km variable name, neither miles, and here we have the variable result, 4.0 blah blah blah, whatever the function convert returned to us. And then we're done with this problem. Okay, so this is it for functions. All right, I hope you enjoyed this content. If you have any questions, send here on the comment, or join our group where you can have full support from our programming experts via Telegram and group coaching every week. All right, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.